The stars shone like silver lanterns across the endless black sky. A small trade ship drifted among them, carrying Aaron, a young man who made his living by moving goods between colonies. His ship was not large or beautiful. It was old, patched together with repairs, and its engines often rattled like loose tools. Yet to Aaron, it was home. He liked the quiet life, where his only company was the hum of the engines and the soft flicker of lights on the control panel. One evening, as he traveled near an uncharted world, his radar beeped. A faint signal reached his ship, broken and weak. At first, he thought it might be interference from a storm or some abandoned satellite. But when he checked again, he saw it was a distress beacon. The signal was faint, almost dying, but still asking for help. Aaron leaned forward in his chair. Distress beacons were rare out in the uncharted regions. Many traders ignored them, fearing pirates or old traps. But Aaron had never been the type to turn away. He pulled a lever, changing course, and the ship groaned as it adjusted. His eyes stayed locked on the fading signal as he guided his ship toward it. When he arrived, he saw smoke rising above the planet's surface. A vessel had crashed in a wide valley, half buried in the soil. Its hull was broken, fires burned along its side, and pieces of metal were scattered across the ground like fallen leaves. Aaron landed his ship nearby, pulling on his helmet before stepping outside. The air of the planet was thin but breathable, the kind that made the lungs ache after only a few minutes. The wreckage hissed and cracked as flames consumed the twisted metal. Aaron moved quickly, scanning the wreck for life. At first, he thought it was empty, just another forgotten ship. But then, through the smoke, he heard a soft sound. A weak voice. His heart quickened. Pushing aside a broken panel, he found her. A young girl with blue skin, lying on the floor of the wreck. Her eyes opened slightly, glowing faintly, and she stared at him as if unsure he was real. She was hurt, her clothes torn, her breathing shallow. Aaron dropped to his knees, speaking softly through the helmet speaker. "Don't worry. I'll get you out." The girl's lips moved, but her words were strange, a language he barely understood. Still, her tone carried fear and pain, and Aaron knew he had no time to waste. Carefully, he lifted her into his arms. She was light, almost too light, as if she had not eaten in days. The wreck groaned again, and a fresh flame leapt up near the ceiling. He carried her through the smoke and heat, shielding her as best he could. The outside air felt cool compared to the fire. He hurried back to his ship, his boots sinking into the soft soil. The girl tried to speak again, but her voice broke into a cough. Aaron whispered to her, even though he knew she might not understand. "You're safe now. Just hold on." Once inside his ship, he placed her on a bed near the medkit. He worked quickly, giving her water and covering her with a thermal blanket. Her skin was warm to the touch, but her body trembled. Slowly, her breathing steadied. She looked at him again with eyes that seemed both alien and human at once. Hours passed as Aaron repaired what wounds he could with his simple tools. She did not speak much, but when she did, he caught small words. Her name was Nira. That was all he understood. When morning came, the fires of the crashed ship had burned out in the valley. Aaron stood at the window, staring at the smoke still rising in the distance. He thought about the dangers of helping her. Some colonies did not trust outsiders, and blue-skinned travelers were rare. Bringing her with him might mean questions or even trouble. But when he turned to look at her, he saw her sitting weakly on the edge of the bed, her eyes filled with quiet strength. She met his gaze and whispered her first clear sentence in his language. "One day, I will return this kindness." Her words surprised him. He did not know how much she understood, but the promise in her voice was firm. She spoke as though kindness was something that demanded balance, something she would never forget. Aaron only nodded. He did not save her to earn a reward. He saved her because no one deserved to die alone in fire and smoke. Still, her words lingered in his mind as he prepared his ship for departure. The planet grew smaller behind them as they rose back into the stars. Neera rested quietly, her eyes closing once more, while Aaron returned to the controls. He did not know where her journey would take her or if their paths would ever cross again. But in the silence of the ship, her voice repeated in his memory like an echo, "One day, I will return this kindness." Aaron smiled faintly, though he did not know why. To him, it felt like the start of something far greater than a simple rescue. Years passed like the turning of silent pages in a book. The memory of the blue-skinned girl slowly became faint in Aaron's mind, like an old dream that one remembers only in fragments. Life had pulled him back into its steady rhythm, and there was always work to do. After leaving the uncharted planet, Aaron had returned to his usual life. His trade ship grew too old for the long journeys between stars, and eventually he decided to settle down. He found work as a mechanic on a frontier colony known as Vela Outpost, a small settlement on the edge of known space. Vela was not special. It had dusty streets, worn houses, and people who worked hard to keep the colony alive against storms and failing machines. But to Aaron, it became home. He spent his days repairing engines, welding broken pipes, and keeping the colony's power station running. The people of Vela came to trust him. Whenever a ship sputtered to a stop or a farmer's machine broke down, Aaron was the one they called. He had grease on his hands more often than not, and the sound of tools clinking filled his workshop from dawn to dusk. In the evenings, when work was done, Aaron would sometimes sit outside his small house. He would look at the stars, letting his mind wander. The sky above Vela was clear, and the stars felt close, as if one could reach out and pluck them from the Black Sea. He often wondered what stories were happening out there, far away from the quiet colony. It was in those quiet moments that he sometimes remembered her. Neera. The girl with blue skin, who had looked at him with tired eyes and spoken in a voice that carried both weakness and strength. He could still recall the promise she made, "One day, I will return this kindness." The memory was sharp, but distant, like a candle in the far end of a hallway. He would smile to himself, then shake his head. Surely, she had moved on. Perhaps she had returned to her people. Perhaps she had forgotten him. After all, he was only a mechanic, a single human among countless stars. What reason would she have to return? The colony around him never asked about his past. Most people on Vela carried their own stories, their own secrets. Life was hard enough without worrying about what others had once seen or done. To them, Aaron was simply the reliable man who could fix anything with his hands and patience. But still, some nights, the memory of the crash came back. He would see again the burning wreck, the smoke rising into the sky, the weak figure lying among the broken metal. He would remember how fragile she felt when he carried her, and how her voice trembled when she promised to repay him. As the years went by, the memory grew lighter, like a painting slowly losing its colors. Aaron worked, he aged, and life moved forward. Children grew up in the colony, traders came and went, storms swept over the land and past. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into years. One day, a young boy in the colony asked Aaron why he always stared at the stars at night. Aaron only laughed softly and said, "Because they remind me that the universe is bigger than this place." He did not explain more. How could he tell the boy about a strange girl with skin like the sea and a promise that felt like a whisper from another life? Yet, inside, the thought never fully left him. It stayed quiet, like a seed buried under soil. Aaron's life was not full of glory, but it was full of work, and he found peace in that. He had no great riches, no great fame, but he had a purpose. Machines broke, and he fixed them. That was enough. Still, the stars had a way of reminding him of the unknown. Sometimes, when the colony's lights went dark for the night, and the sky stretched wide above him, he wondered. Did Nira survive? Did she truly mean her words? Or had he imagined the weight of her promise? He would never know, he told himself. The galaxy was too vast. Too many stars, too many worlds, too many lives. What were the chances that a blue-skinned girl he once saved would ever find her way back to him? So Aaron lived, day by day, letting the promise fade into the corners of memory. But what he did not know was that the universe had not forgotten. Far beyond the dusty streets of Vela, events were unfolding. The name Aaron had been carried farther than he could imagine. The girl he had once saved had not let go of her vow. The promise was not broken. It was waiting. And soon, the quiet mechanic of Vela Outpost would learn that forgotten kindness has a way of returning when least expected. The colony of Vela was usually quiet at night. Most people returned to their homes after long hours of work, and the streets grew empty except for the soft glow of old lamps. On this night, Aaron sat in his small workshop, his hands stained with grease as he repaired a broken power unit. The soft buzz of tools was the only sound, steady and familiar. Then the ground trembled. At first, it was light, like distant thunder. But soon, the rumble grew stronger. Tools shook on the table. The lights flickered. Aaron frowned and stepped outside. Above the colony, the sky was alive with light. A great silver ship was descending, its surface shining like polished stone, its engines glowing softly in the darkness. People poured out of their homes, staring upward in silence. The children pointed with wide eyes, while the elders exchanged worried looks. Ships rarely came to Vela, and never ones like this. The colony had seen old cargo carriers and simple transports, but this ship was something different. It was sleek, smooth, and far larger than anything Aaron had seen in years. The ship landed slowly beyond the colony, near the open plain where traders sometimes set down their vessels. Dust swirled into the air as the engines cooled. A long ramp extended to the ground, and from the light within, figures began to appear. They were tall and graceful, their forms hidden under long cloaks that shimmered faintly under the moonlight. The people of Vela watched in silence, unsure whether to be afraid or curious. At the center of the group walked a woman who stood straighter than the rest. She moved with calm, her steps measured, her presence strong. Her skin was blue, glowing faintly under the stars. Her eyes shone with the same brightness Aaron remembered, though years had passed. It was Nira. Aaron's breath caught. For a moment, the world seemed to pause. The fire of the wreck, the promise spoken in a quiet voice, all returned to him like it had happened yesterday. She was older now, her features sharper, her movements more confident. Yet he knew her instantly. She walked past the silent crowd without hesitation, her gaze fixed on him. The colonists whispered to each other, surprised at how directly the strange visitor approached their quiet mechanic. Children clutched their parents' hands, and men reached for tools as if they might need to defend their homes. But Nira showed no threat. Her eyes softened as she stopped before Aaron's workshop. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. It was as though the years between them hung in the air, invisible but heavy. Finally, she broke the silence. Her voice was clearer now, her words smooth in his language. "I have come to collect the debt." The words fell like a stone in the still night. The colonists exchanged puzzled looks, whispering among themselves. What debt? What did the strange woman mean? Aaron's brow furrowed. He wiped his hands on his apron and looked at her carefully. Debt? He asked quietly. What do you mean? Her gaze did not waver. Long ago, you saved my life. You gave me food, shelter, and hope when I had none. I made a promise that day. A promise that I would return. That time has come. The weight of her words settled over him. Memories rushed back, her weak form in his arms, her faint voice whispering about kindness. He had almost convinced himself it was a dream, a story from another life. But here she stood, as real as the dust beneath their feet. Aaron glanced at the colonists around them. Their eyes were wide, their fear mixing with curiosity. He knew they would demand answers later. But in this moment, his world had narrowed to her. "You remembered," he said softly, almost in disbelief. "I never forgot," Nira replied. "Among my people, a promise is not a simple word. It is a bond. And now, I ask you to stand with me, as I once stood with you in fire and ash." Her words were calm, but behind them was urgency. Something heavy pressed upon her shoulders, something greater than just a personal vow. Aaron felt his chest tighten. He was only a mechanic, a man who fixed machines and lived a quiet life. What could she want from him? Why would she travel across the stars to find him? Before he could ask, she placed her hand gently on his arm. Her touch was firm, steady. "The galaxy is changing," she said. "My people face a storm we cannot endure alone. And you, Aaron, are part of the answer. You may not see it, but I do. Your spirit is different. It is what we need." The night around them grew silent again. Even the wind seemed to wait. Aaron stared at her, the weight of her words pressing into his heart. He wanted to speak, to argue, to tell her she was wrong. But deep inside, he felt a spark. A faint echo of the moment he had carried her through fire, when he had acted without hesitation. The spark told him that his quiet life was no longer enough. The promise she had made long ago had returned, not as a memory, but as a call. And Aaron knew that his life, and the life of the colony, would never be the same again. The night after Nira's arrival was restless for the colony. People gathered in small groups, whispering about the strange visitors and the tall woman with blue skin who had walked straight to Aaron's workshop. Some were afraid, others were simply curious, but none could ignore what they had seen. For Vela, where nothing unusual ever happened, this was a storm of questions with no answers. Inside his workshop, Aaron sat across from Nira. A small lamp lit the room, casting long shadows on the walls. The soft hum of the cooling engines outside filled the silence. Aaron's hands were folded tightly, his brow furrowed. "You said you came to collect a debt," he finally said. "I don't understand. I'm just a mechanic. What could I possibly give you?" Nira's eyes met his, calm but steady. "Not a thing. A choice. A hand when others turn away. You gave it to me once. Now I ask for it again." Aaron shook his head. "I saved you because anyone would have done the same." She leaned forward. "Not anyone. Many would have turned their ship away from a faint signal in empty space. Many would have feared a stranger. You did not. You chose to act when you could have stayed safe. That is why I am here." Her voice carried no anger, only certainty. But Aaron still struggled to understand. "What do you need from me?" Nira stood and walked toward the window of the workshop. She pulled the curtain aside, revealing the night sky. Her ship rested outside, glowing faintly like a silver mountain. "My people are hunted," she said softly. "The Empire spreads across the stars. They drive us from our homes. Villages burn, families scatter, and our children hide among the ruins. We are strong in spirit, but we are not united. Fear breaks us. We need someone who can remind us what hope feels like." Aaron blinked, unsure if he had heard her correctly. "You want me to lead your people? That's impossible. I can barely keep this colony's power station running. I'm no soldier, no commander." Nira turned back to him. Her gaze was sharp, but not unkind. "I do not ask you to be what you are not. I ask you to be what you already are. You fix what is broken. Machines, ships, lives. You see solutions when others see only failure. That is what my people need." Her words echoed in the small room. Aaron leaned back, shaking his head slowly. You've got the wrong man. I'm no hero. A faint smile touched Nira's lips. When you carried me from the fire, did you feel like a hero? Or did you simply do what was right? Aaron's throat tightened. He had no answer. He remembered the wreck, the smoke, the way her voice trembled as she whispered her promise. He had not thought of himself as a hero then. He had simply acted because he could not bear to leave her behind. Seeing his silence, Nira continued. My people already know your name. Stories of your rescue spread among us. To them, you are the one who risked himself for a stranger. To them, you are proof that humans can be trusted. That promise I gave you was not mine alone. It belongs to all of us now. Aaron felt the weight of her words pressing on him. He looked down at his calloused hands, hands made for fixing broken engines, not shaping the fate of a people. The thought of standing against an empire seemed unreal. He wanted to tell her no, to send her away, to return to the quiet rhythm of his life. But deep inside, something stirred. The spark he had felt when she appeared now grew brighter. For years he had told himself he was just a mechanic. Yet why had she come all this way, across the stars, if not because she truly believed in him? The door creaked as one of the colonists stepped in. It was Mara, an elder woman who often brought her farming tools for repair. Her face was lined with age and worry. Aaron, she said carefully, is it true? Did she come for you? Aaron glanced at Nira, then back at Mara. It seems so, he answered quietly. Mara studied Nira with cautious eyes. Then she sighed. If she speaks of war, be careful. This colony is small. We have little enough as it is. If trouble follows her here, we will all pay the price. Nira bowed her head respectfully. I did not come to bring harm. I came to ask for help. If Aaron chooses not to give it, then I will leave, and your colony will not be touched. Her words were calm, but they carried weight. Mara gave a slow nod, then left, leaving silence behind. Aaron let out a breath he did not know he was holding. He turned back to Nira. You're asking me to walk away from everything I know. Nira stepped closer, her eyes steady on his. I am asking you to walk towards something greater. You once saved a single life. Now you can save many. The room grew still again. Aaron's heart beat heavily in his chest. He looked at her, at the strength in her eyes, and knew that the promise from long ago was no longer just a memory. It was alive, and it had come knocking on his door. He did not give his answer that night. But deep down, he already knew that the quiet days of a simple mechanic were coming to an end. The following morning, Aaron stood outside his workshop, staring at the silver ship that had brought Nira and her people. The colony was awake early, yet unusually quiet. Everyone was watching. The strange visitors remained near their vessel, speaking little, their cloaks moving with the wind. Their calm presence only deepened the questions whispered among the colonists. Aaron's hands itched to hold his tools, to fix something broken, anything to distract him from the decision pressing on his mind. He had not given Nira his answer, but the way she looked at him told him she already knew he would not refuse. Still, the weight of her request made his chest heavy. Before he could gather his thoughts, Nira approached. Her eyes were tired, though her posture was steady. We leave today, she said simply. There is a convoy of my people hiding not far from here. They are weak, and they are being hunted. If you wish to see the truth of my words, come with me. Aaron hesitated. He glanced back at the colony. Mara, the elder woman, stood by the well, watching him closely. Many colonists were the same, their eyes filled with both fear and curiosity. He realized that if he went, his quiet life here might never be the same. But then he remembered the look in Nira's eyes the night before. A look that held both sorrow and hope. Aaron tightened his jaw. then nodded. "I'll come." The ramp of the silver ship hissed open. For the first time in years, Aaron stepped aboard a vessel that was not his own. The interior was bright and smooth, unlike the patched walls of his old trade ship. Strange symbols glowed softly along the panels. Nira guided him to the command deck, where her people sat at stations. They bowed their heads slightly when they saw him, as though greeting not a stranger, but someone they had long expected. The ship lifted from the plain, and soon Vela was only a small patch of brown and green below. Aaron felt the familiar pull of the engines, the hum of flight, and for a moment, it was like being young again, roaming the stars. Hours later, the convoy appeared on the scanners. Small ships drifted together, many of them scarred and damaged. Some barely held shape, their engines flickering weakly. Through the viewing glass, Aaron could see families moving inside, faces pale and weary. "These are the survivors," Nira said quietly. "They have been running for months. Their homes were taken, their ships destroyed. They hide, but they cannot hide forever." Aaron swallowed hard. It was one thing to hear her words, another to see them. The refugees' ships looked ready to fall apart. They reminded him of broken tools left too long in the rain, waiting for someone to care for them. Then the warning alarms rang. The ship shuddered slightly as the sensors lit up. Nira's second in command, a tall man with silver patterns across his skin, turned quickly. "Raiders! They've found us." Through the glass, dark shapes emerged from the stars. Enemy vessels, fast and sharp, cutting across the void like blades. Their weapons glowed faintly as they moved to encircle the convoy. Panic spread among the refugees. Their voices filled the channels, cries of fear and desperation. Aaron could hear them even from where he stood. Children screamed, mothers begged for protection, men shouted warnings that no one could answer. Nero looked at Aaron. Her calm mask had cracks now. "This is what I meant. My people are brave, but fear breaks them. What can we do?" Aaron stared at the approaching raiders. His heart pounded. He was no soldier. He had never fought in a battle. But his mind worked the way it always did when something was broken, looking for weaknesses, searching for pieces that could be shaped into solutions. He glanced at the convoy again. Most ships had no weapons, but many had damaged engines leaking power. And then, the idea came. "Tell them to overload the weakest engines," Aaron said sharply. Nira blinked. "Overload?" "Yes," he pressed. "Push them to their limit until they spark. Make it look like the ships are about to explode. The raiders don't know how weak we are. They'll think we have traps. They'll back off." Nira hesitated, then gave the order. The refugees, though afraid, followed her command. Across the convoy, old engines flared bright. Sparks and fire sprayed from the failing ships, but the energy surges looked violent and dangerous from a distance. The raiders slowed. Their formation broke, uncertainty creeping into their movement. One ship moved closer, then quickly pulled back as another engine burst into flames. The sight of so many unstable ships gave the illusion of a desperate trap, a last strike waiting to destroy anyone who approached. Moments stretched into eternity. Then, without warning, the raiders turned. Their vessels pulled back, fading into the dark of space until only silence remained. The convoy was safe. Inside the command deck, relief washed over everyone. Refugees cried with joy over the comms. Children's voices filled the air again, not with fear, but laughter. Nira turned to Aaron, her eyes wide with wonder. "You see solutions where we see only despair," she said softly. "This is why I came to you." Aaron let out a shaky breath, his hands still trembling. He was no soldier, but he had saved lives. For the first time, he understood that Nira had not come for a hero. She had come for a human who refused to give up, even when the odds seemed hopeless. And as the convoy steadied itself in the quiet of space, Aaron realized something else. The debt Nira had spoken of was not a burden at all. It was a chance to give meaning to the life he had almost let slip into silence. The convoy drifted in silence after the raiders fled. Engines flickered weakly, and many ships were still scarred from months of running. Yet, for the first time in a long while, there was hope. The families inside those battered vessels looked to one another with cautious smiles. They had survived, not by luck, but because someone had guided them with clever thinking. In the command deck, Aaron leaned back in his chair, his heart still racing from the tension of the encounter. He had not fired a single weapon. He had not led a charge. Yet, the strategy he had suggested had saved lives. He was still trying to understand it himself. Nira stood at his side, her hands clasped behind her back. Her voice was quiet but strong. "You turned fear into strength. That is what my people have forgotten. They only needed someone to remind them." Aaron gave a small shake of his head. "I only used an old trick. Engines break all the time. I just thought of how the raiders would see it." "To us," Nira replied, "that is wisdom. To see what others cannot, to find victory where none seems possible, that is what makes you different." The silver-skinned man at the navigation station turned to face them. His eyes were bright, his voice steady. "Our people speak your name already. They will call you Protector." Aaron felt his chest tighten. Protector. It was a heavy word. He had never asked for such a title. But when he glanced through the viewing glass at the convoy, at the children pressing their faces to windows, waving with excitement, he felt something stir inside him. Perhaps, in their eyes, he was exactly that. Over the following days, the convoy moved from hiding place to hiding place, and Aaron worked without rest. He repaired engines that were on the verge of collapse. He rewired failing systems. He taught Nira's people simple tricks with old machines, ways to stretch resources that they had never considered. He discovered quickly that Nira's people were skilled fighters but poor builders. They knew how to defend themselves with weapons, but they struggled to keep their ships alive. Aaron's hands, used to the grease and sparks of machinery, became just as valuable as any weapon. At first, the refugees were unsure of him. He was human, a stranger to their ways. But each time a ship's lights flickered back on, each time a family could breathe clean air again, their doubts faded. Soon, children ran to him with laughter, and adults spoke his name with respect. Nira watched it all with quiet pride. One evening, as they stood together on the viewing deck, she said, "You have given them something no warrior could. You have given them hope." Aaron looked out at the stars, where the convoy glowed faintly against the darkness. "Hope is fragile," he said. "It can vanish fast." "True," Nira agreed. "But it can also grow stronger when shared. Do you see how they follow your example now? They believe again, because you believed when they could not." Her words stayed with him. Aaron began to notice small changes among the refugees. Families that had once spoken only of running now spoke of building again. Fighters who had once argued over leadership now worked together. They began to repair their ships not only for survival, but for the chance of a future. One night, as Aaron finished fixing a damaged engine, a young boy approached him. The boy's skin shimmered faintly under the lights, and his eyes were wide with admiration. "Sir," the boy said shyly, "is it true that you tricked the raiders? That you scared them with broken engines?" Aaron chuckled, wiping his hands on a cloth. "I didn't scare them. The engines did the work. I only gave the idea. But no one else thought of it," the boy said firmly. "My father says you saved us all. He says humans have a strange kind of courage." Aaron paused, touched by the boy's words. He patted the child's shoulder. "Courage isn't about being strong. It's about not giving up, even when you feel small." The boy smiled, then ran back to his family. Aaron watched him go, and the weight in his chest grew lighter. Still, not everything was safe. News spread quickly through space, and the Empire would not ignore the escape of so many refugees. Each day carried the risk of discovery. Nira and her crew reminded him often of the danger. But instead of fear, there was now determination among the people. They believed they had a chance, and Aaron was at the center of it. One evening, Nira spoke to him again. "You once told me you were only a mechanic. But now, look. You have repaired more than ships. You have repaired the spirit of a people." Aaron met her gaze. "I don't know if I can carry that weight." "You do not carry it alone," she said firmly. "We carry it with you." Her words warmed him, though a part of him still wondered how far this path would lead. He had not asked for this role, but perhaps it had found him because he could not turn away. As the convoy moved forward into the unknown, the stars above seemed brighter. The people had begun to believe again. And Aaron, the quiet mechanic of Vela, was beginning to believe as well. For the first time in years, he felt that his life had meaning beyond himself. And though danger waited ahead, he no longer feared it. Because he knew now that when humans refuse to give up, even the darkest night cannot last forever. The warning came as the convoy drifted near a cluster of small asteroids. Sensors picked up dozens of enemy ships moving fast through space, their shapes dark against the stars. Nira stood at the command deck, her hands clenched tightly on the railing. Her people were tense, the air heavy with fear. Aaron stood beside her, staring at the approaching fleet. The ships were larger than anything he had faced before. Their weapons glowed with energy that could tear through even the strongest hulls. Many of the refugee ships were still fragile, patched together from old metal and weak engines. A single strike could destroy them all. Nira turned to him. "This is the Empire's fleet. They will not stop until they destroy us. Are you ready?" Aaron swallowed hard. His hands were steady, but his heart pounded. He had never imagined that the debt he once repaid by saving a single life would lead to this. But he now knew there was no turning back. "We fight," he said simply. The ships of the convoy moved into position, guided by Nira and her trusted crew. Aaron began issuing instructions to the refugees, using strategies he had learned during their journey. He told them how to use the asteroids for cover, where to concentrate their engines to create illusions of strength, and how to create traps using damaged ships. At first, the refugees hesitated. Many were scared. But Aaron spoke with calm certainty. "Do not think you are weak. You are alive. That is proof enough. Follow the plan, and we can hold them." Nira's voice joined his. "Trust him. He once saved me. Now he will help save all of us." Slowly, confidence returned. The refugees worked together, following instructions that would have seemed impossible just days before. Aaron moved from station to station, fixing engines, rerouting power, and guiding them with knowledge he never thought could matter so much. The enemy ships closed in. Their engines flared, and weapons charged for the first strike. Aaron's heart pounded. He took a deep breath and signaled the first maneuver. Explosions of light lit the void as the convoy acted in perfect synchronization, using the asteroid field to hide and confuse the attackers. One enemy vessel moved too close to a damaged ship. Aaron had predicted it. He activated a power surge in the ship's engine. Sparks flew, flames burst, and the enemy ship veered sharply to avoid what looked like an explosion. It was a simple trick, but it worked. The raider hesitated, then moved back, wary of what it could not see. Over the next few hours, Aaron guided the convoy with careful decisions. Some ships acted as decoys, some as traps. He repaired engines on the fly, rerouted power, and even sacrificed old ships to protect the weaker ones. Nira's people followed him without question. Their fear had turned into courage, and the conviction of a single human gave them strength they had almost lost. Finally, after a long and tense battle, the enemy fleet began to retreat. They had underestimated the refugees, their improvised strategies, and the ingenuity of a man they had likely dismissed as insignificant. The Empire's ships faded into the darkness of space, leaving the convoy intact. Silence returned. The refugees cheered through their communication channels. Children laughed again, families hugged, and relief filled the air. Nira turned to Aaron, her blue skin glimmering faintly in the soft light. "You see now," she said softly, "your actions carry more than just results. They carry hope. You gave them reason to fight, to survive, to believe again." Aaron looked out at the convoy, at the people who had once been hunted and broken, now alive and moving forward. He felt a strange pride, not of himself, but in what they had achieved together. He had never imagined that a simple mechanic could make such a difference. Nira placed a hand on his shoulder. "The debt is paid, Aaron. You saved me once, and now you have saved many. But our story is not finished. This victory is only the beginning." Aaron nodded. The weight of the battle lifted slightly from his chest, replaced by understanding. He realized that the universe did not ask for heroes. It asked for those who refuse to give up, who act even when the odds seem impossible. He had done what was right, and that was enough. As the convoy gathered near a safe orbit, Aaron looked at Nira. She had grown strong, not just from survival, but from the courage of someone who never forgot a promise. He felt a deep respect for her, and a quiet gratitude that she had returned. In the days that followed, the refugees began to rebuild. Ships were repaired, homes were restored on distant worlds, and communities began to flourish again. Nira's people looked at Aaron not just as a human who helped, but as proof that even in the darkest times, one person's courage could change everything. And Aaron, the quiet mechanic from a small frontier colony, understood that his life had been shaped not by fortune or strength, but by choices. By standing when it was difficult, by acting when it was easier to walk away, he had helped save countless lives. The stars above stretched endlessly, full of unknown worlds and challenges. Aaron knew more battles would come, more decisions would weigh heavily on him. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of peace. Hope had returned, courage had returned, and he had discovered that even ordinary humans could make a difference across the galaxy. And in that quiet moment, he smiled, knowing that the promise he once received had grown into something far greater than he could have imagined.